Hey everyone. So, if you are in ministry, you know how much of your time gets eaten up by communications, right? All the emails, the announcements, the social media posts. It's all really important work, but man, so much of it feels like you're doing the same thing over and over. Today, we're going to look at a tool that can actually help you get some of that time back. So, in this little walkthrough, we've got three main goals. First, we'll get really clear on what makes one of these custom AI assistants different from a regular old chatbot. Then, we're going to roll up our sleeves and build one, step by step. And probably the most important part, we'll go over the essential safety rules for using these tools responsibly in our church context.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? That moment when you realize you're writing the same welcome new visitor email for what feels like the 100th time, or you're just staring at a blank screen trying to figure out a new way to announce the potluck. This is exactly the kind of repetitive work where a custom assistant can be a total game changer.
Okay, let's start with a really simple analogy to wrap our heads around this. Using a normal chatbot, like the basic ChatGPT, is kind of like talking to a general receptionist in a giant office building. Yeah, they're helpful, they know where the elevators are, but they don't know a thing about your specific ministry. A custom GPT, though, now that's like a trained ministry assistant. You've given them a job description, you've handed them a binder with your church's comm style guide, and you've given them clear rules. It knows your context.
Look, theory is one thing, but it's always better to just see it in action. So let's do that. We're going to build a simple church comms assistant together right now. And don't worry, I'll show you every single click. First thing you need to know is that you'll need a ChatGPT Plus, Team, or Enterprise account for this. It's not available on the free version just yet. So, once you're logged in, look over to the left-hand sidebar for Explore GPTs. Go ahead and click that. On the next page, you'll see a big Plus Create button up in the top right corner. That's where we're going. As soon as you click Create, you'll see two tabs, Create and Configure. The Create tab is this conversational thing where you can just talk to the builder. It's kind of neat, but honestly, for getting it right and having full control, we always recommend using the Configure tab. It's just a straightforward form and it lets you see and tweak everything directly. Okay, first things first, we got to give our assistant a name and tell people what it does. Let's call it Church Comms Assistant. Nice and simple. For the description, we'll write something clear, like helps staff write announcements and social posts in our church's voice. You can even click a button to have it make a little icon for you, which is pretty cool. All right, now we're at what is without a doubt the most important part of this whole setup, the instructions. You really need to think of this box as the job description. This is your chance to lay out all the rules, to define its personality, and to set the guardrails for how it should behave. Seriously, the quality of what you get out of this thing is almost entirely dependent on what you put in right here. So, what makes for good instructions? Well, here are a few perfect examples. First, we define its role and its tone. We want it to be warm and encouraging. Then we tell it specifically to use a document that we're going to upload in a minute. And this is critical. We give it an out. If it gets a question about complicated theology or a church policy it doesn't know, it's supposed to say, please ask a pastor. And we give it a non-negotiable rule. Do not make up Bible verses. That's a real thing AI can do, so we have to forbid it. Okay, after we nail the instructions, there are two more key parts to fill out: conversation starters and knowledge. Think of the starters as helpful little shortcut buttons for your team, and the knowledge section, well, that's where you upload the files to give your AI its binder of information from our analogy. For our little comms assistant, we can create starters for the stuff we do all the time. You know, things like draft a welcome email for a new visitor or write a social media post for this week's sermon. This way, when your team goes to use the tool, they can just click a button instead of having to type out a whole long prompt every single time. It's a huge time saver. And this is where the magic really happens. We're going to upload our church comms style guide. By doing this, we're making sure that every single email, every announcement, every post it helps us write sounds like us. It's consistent with our church's unique voice. This is what truly makes it a custom assistant. All right, so there are a few more advanced things you can switch on. Don't feel overwhelmed by these. You absolutely don't need them to get started, but it's good to know they're there for later on down the road. Here's a super simple way to think about them. You'd turn on web browsing if you need your assistant to go find current info, like the details for a citywide service project. You turn on DALL-E image generation if you wanted to help you create custom graphics for social media. And you'd flip on code interpreter if, say, you wanted it to analyze some attendance numbers from a spreadsheet. simple rules for when to use them.
You might also notice a section called Actions. Now, this is a super powerful but also pretty complex feature. It can let your GPT connect to other apps, so it could, for example, pull event details directly from your live church calendar. But here's the bottom line. If you are just starting out, you can and should completely ignore this. You can build an amazing, helpful tool without ever touching Actions. So, as you're building all this out, you can try it out in the preview window on the right side of the screen. Once you like how it's working, you just click Save. It's going to pop up with some sharing options. Now, listen, for internal church tools, you always want to choose only people with a link. This makes sure it stays private for your team. Then you just copy that link and send it out to your staff or your key volunteers.
Okay, before we wrap up, we have to talk about what is easily the most important part of this whole conversation: safety. Using these tools well means we have to use them wisely and very, very carefully. So let's go over 3 non-negotiable rules.
Rule number 1. This is the big one. You never, ever upload or paste any sensitive, private, or confidential information. That means no pastoral counseling notes, no private prayer requests, no financial giving records, nothing like that. Being good stewards of information is a huge part of pastoral care. Our people trust us with their lives and their stories, and we have to protect that trust fiercely.
Rule number 2 is to remember that AI is not perfect. In fact, it can be confidently wrong about stuff. So you always, always have to verify its output. I mean it. Double-check scripture references in an actual Bible. Go confirm the event dates and times on the church calendar. The AI is your first drafter, your helpful assistant, but you are the final editor. You are responsible for making sure everything is accurate.
And finally, rule number 3, test it before you trust it. Before you send a tool like this out to your whole volunteer team, have your core staff kick the tires on it first. Use it for safe internal tasks. This lets you work out any kinks and get some good feedback before it's ever used for anything that the public is going to see. So, to bring it all home, here's a final checklist for you. Before you hit send and share your new assistant, just run through these quick questions. Is its purpose crystal clear? Are the instructions specific enough? Is it using the right knowledge files? And, most importantly, have you tested it internally and really thought through the safety rules? Following these steps is going to help you build a tool that isn't just efficient, but is also really effective and ethical for your ministry. So think about it. What's one repetitive task you could automate to free up more time for ministry with actual people?